Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. She slipped off her wedding ring. Not to throw it at me, not to place it on the counter in some dramatic fashion. No, she took it off to stir her tea. And that's how I knew she was already gone. We were sitting at the cafe on Coldberry Avenue. The one with the mismatched chairs and the wobbly ceiling fan that made everyone paranoid. We'd been coming there for years, through birthdays, arguments, makeups, and plans we never followed through on. And that day, she wanted to meet, just to talk. I should have known. I think I've outgrown this, she said, motioning not just to the cafe, but to us. To me. I tried to sip my drink, but my hands were too sweaty. I remember focusing on the ring sitting on the saucer beside her teaspoon, glinting in the sun like it was mocking me. That ring used to mean something. To her. To me. To what we promised on that rainy Wednesday in Savannah 8 years ago. Now it was just a thing she moved so it wouldn't clink against porcelain. I'm not yours to keep, Colin, she said gently, as if she were letting me down easy. Like I was a puppy she couldn't bring to her new apartment. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg. But all I did was ask. Since when? She didn't answer. She just blew on her tea and stirred. The sound of the spoon tapping the cup was louder than her voice. We didn't argue. We didn't cry. She got up halfway through her lemon tart and said she'd come by on Friday to collect the last of her things. I asked if we could talk more. She said, "There's nothing else to say." I watched her walk out into the sunshine like someone who had just left a meeting, not a marriage. That night, I opened our closet and found a duffel bag already half-packed. She'd been ready long before I knew there was a problem. Shoes missing. Makeup gone. The space on her side of the bed felt colder, even with the blanket still there. She had planned her exit like a surgeon. Precise, bloodless, efficient. And me? I just kept standing in the hallway, holding her ring like it still had heat. But if she thought I'd disappear quietly, she underestimated the cost of making herself free. She didn't expect me to let go so quietly. That was the first sign she never really knew me. Lynette always thought of me as the safe guy, the soft-spoken placeholder for something more exciting. I saw it in the way she listened to me, half smiling, eyes darting away, like I was background music during a scene she didn't care to watch. But she forgot something important. Quiet men don't shout when they're in pain. We observe. We remember. And sometimes we change. Friday came fast. She showed up 2 hours earlier than she said she would, maybe hoping to avoid conversation. Her hair was tied back the way she always wore it when she didn't want to feel. She moved around the apartment like it was already hers again, touching things she hadn't cared about in months. The photo frame of us in Asheville, straight into a tote bag. The mug I bought her with the dumb quote about soulmates, tossed into a box like it meant nothing. I just stood there, watching, not asking why. "You're being mature," she said as she zipped her suitcase. "I wasn't sure how you'd handle this." I nodded. I smiled a little, even. What she didn't know was that 2 nights earlier, I'd already met with a lawyer. The house, in my name. The car she thought she'd keep, paid off by me 2 years ago, using a bonus she didn't even ask about. I'd let her believe everything was joint because it made her feel powerful. But when you spend your life being overlooked, you learn to protect yourself quietly. Before she left, she turned around in the doorway. Her expression was strange, half sad, half relieved. "I just want to be happy, Colin. I hope you understand that." I wanted to say, "Was I that miserable to you?" But instead, I said, "I hope you get everything you're looking for." And she walked out, not knowing I'd already canceled her phone line, not knowing the joint savings account she planned to dip into had been legally split last week, not knowing the man she left behind wasn't the man who'd stay behind. The first day without her was quiet in the wrong way. Not peaceful, just absent. I sat on the far end of the couch, staring at the empty space where her slippers used to sit. Ugly blue ones she bought on sale and insisted were quirky. They annoyed me for years, and now all I could think was, why didn't she take those two? Maybe she left them to haunt me. Or maybe she assumed I'd throw them out in some melodramatic rage. I didn't. I just stared. I kept waiting for the wave of grief. The tears. The shouting. The full collapse of the man she believed I was. But none of that came. Something stranger did, a quiet clarity. I wasn't heartbroken. I was humiliated. She had written me off long before she ever left. And she expected me to fade quietly so she could feel like the noble one. Like she had outgrown me. But you don't outgrow someone when you never really gave them space to grow beside you. A week passed. Then 2. I didn't text her. Didn't call. The phone she once clung to like an extra limb was now silent, because it was off. I'd canceled her line exactly as I warned the lawyer I would. She hadn't even noticed yet. I knew that because I logged in and saw the same error, device unreachable. It was pathetic how satisfying that felt. Then, just as I was getting used to the quiet, I received an email from her old Gmail address, one I didn't recognize right away. The subject line simply read, "We need to talk." No punctuation, no warmth, just the cold efficiency of someone used to getting their way. I opened it. 2 lines. "Your lawyer sent me a letter about the car and the accounts. I thought we were going to be adults about this." No hello. No how are you. Just an accusation dressed as disappointment. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to my attorney with one note. "Respond however you think is fair. I'm done playing catch-up." Lynette had chosen freedom. What she didn't understand was that freedom, like most luxuries, had a cost. And now she was beginning to realize she hadn't read the fine print. She wanted to leave me behind like I was the safe old option. But what happens when this safe one starts burning bridges with matches she handed him herself? It was almost funny, in a twisted way. Lynette had walked out like she was starring in a movie. Clean break, no regrets, cue dramatic rain and jazz music. But real life doesn't come with background scores. Real life has logistics, paperwork, broken routines, and consequences. The kind she never bothered to think through. 3 weeks after she left, she tried to come back. Not permanently. Oh no, that would have required admitting she was wrong. Instead, she emailed again. The subject line this time, "Let's be civil." She asked if she could come by and grab a few things she'd forgotten. I said sure, but I didn't tell her I'd already boxed them up. Everything. Every single item that had once screamed her in our home. Scattered hair ties, her dog-eared books, even the ridiculous bathrobe with pineapples on it, was sealed, labeled, and waiting on the porch. She showed up wearing sunglasses, like that would protect her from seeing what she didn't want to see. She stared at the boxes like they'd slapped her. "You went through my stuff?" she asked. I shrugged. "You said you didn't belong here anymore. I just made it easier." She didn't like that. She thought I'd be a wreck. She thought I'd beg her to come back, ask if she missed me, cling to some version of the marriage that only I believed in. But I had moved on. Not romantically, not socially, but emotionally. I no longer needed her approval to feel like I mattered. She tried to shift the power back. "I didn't expect you to act like this, Colin. I thought we could at least keep things friendly." Friendly. As if she hadn't emotionally hollowed me out like an apartment she no longer wanted to pay rent on. I said nothing. Just watched her pick up a box, look through it, and realize everything inside had been handled with clinical precision. No drama. No damage. Just closure. She left that day quieter than she'd arrived. But not before asking one last question. Not even a real question. More like a test. "So you're really okay?" And I answered the truth. "No. But I will be long before you are." She didn't reply. She just walked back to her car, clutching her pineapple robe like maybe it meant something after all. You'd think once someone leaves you, emotionally, physically, legally, you'd stop thinking about them. But that's not how it works. Some people leave fingerprints on your habits. You still pour 2 cups of coffee. You still instinctively reach for the side of the bed that used to stay warm longer. You still brace for a voice that stopped calling your name. But what Lynette didn't realize was that the world outside our home wasn't built to cradle her like I did. She didn't land in the arms of some fairy tale ending. She landed in reality. And it started showing. It began subtly. Mutual friends stopped mentioning her in group chats. One even sent me a screenshot, Lynette asking if I had said something about her. I hadn't. But silence is loud when someone expects you to beg. Then I got a call from my HR rep at work, which I wasn't expecting. Apparently, Lynette had tried to list me as a reference for a marketing job at a firm that happens to contract with mine. She didn't ask me. She assumed I'd say yes. The woman who told me I wasn't hers to keep still wanted to borrow the credibility of my name. I told HR I was uncomfortable being listed for personal reasons. That was all it took. Her offer was pulled a week later. She emailed again. No greeting this time. Just, "Did you sabotage my interview?" And again, I didn't answer. I forwarded it to my lawyer. But it was her next email that said more than she meant to. "Why are you being so cold? I don't deserve this." That line sat in my head like a stubborn echo. I don't deserve this. She'd forgotten everything I had absorbed over the years. Every comment brushed off as a joke. Every time she rolled her eyes when I talked about wanting a slower, quieter life. Every time she told me I wasn't ambitious enough, spontaneous enough, masculine enough. And yet now, when I gave her the peace she claimed to want, I was the villain for not collapsing in front of her. No, Lynette. You don't get to burn the bridge and then be offended when I don't swim through the flames to bring you water. The message that finally made me feel something again wasn't angry. It wasn't accusatory. It was pathetic, and in that way, oddly poetic. Lynette messaged me late one night from a different email, one I hadn't seen before. No subject line. Just 6 words. Can we please just meet once? I stared at it for nearly an hour. Not because I was debating whether to say yes, but because I couldn't decide if I felt pity or satisfaction. She had chosen to vanish from my life, like it was a coat she outgrew. Now, she wanted to try it back on, to see if it still fit. But I wasn't hanging on the rack anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I went for a walk around our old block. It was quiet, humid, the way late summer feels when everything is wilting but pretending it's still alive. I passed the park where she used to read and ignore my rambling thoughts about starting a podcast or writing something real. I passed the cafe where she took off her ring like it was a bracelet she got tired of. And I ended up standing outside the apartment she moved into, the one she chose over me. The lights were on. I saw her silhouette, pacing. She didn't look free. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail. Her voice was shaky. Colin, I didn't know where else to go. It's not about us. I'm not asking to go back. I think I made a mistake. He's not what I thought. Nothing is. I thought leaving would fix something inside me, and it didn't. Everything feels worse. I keep waking up thinking I'll see you. And then I don't. And I hate myself for what I said at that cafe. I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it. She'd confused loneliness for clarity. She wanted comfort, not change. She didn't want me. She wanted who I used to be when I still believed she could love me back. But that man had quietly disappeared, the same day she told me she wasn't mine to keep. And the mirror she was finally staring into? It wasn't mine to fix anymore. It was a Wednesday. Gray sky, sharp wind, and the kind of stillness that makes everything feel heavier. I was home early from work, my new job, one she didn't even know about, when I heard a knock on the door I no longer expected to open for anyone. But there she was, Lynette. Same trench coat, same scarf she used to wrap around my neck when we were still pretending to be in love. Only now, her eyes looked older. Not wiser, just worn. I didn't know where else to go, she said. Not I missed you. Not I'm sorry. Just that. Like I was a hotel lobby and she needed to check in. I didn't say anything. I didn't invite her inside. I just stood in the doorway, arms crossed, waiting for her to say the part she was really here for. He left, she finally admitted. I lost the job offer. My lease is ending next month. And I haven't felt like myself in a long time. There it was. Not love. Not reconciliation. Just logistics. She came back because her escape plan collapsed, and she thought maybe I still had a soft corner she could rent space in. I asked her point blank, do you want me, or do you just want not to be alone? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. That silence, that hesitation, it was louder than any confession. It told me everything I already knew. I'm not angry, Lynette, I said quietly. But I'm not your emergency exit either. Tears started pooling, but I didn't flinch. I didn't offer a tissue. I didn't do any of the things past me would have done to make her feel better about her own mistakes. You always had this version of me in your head, I added. The one who'd always be here. Waiting. Just in case. I'm not him anymore. She stepped back like I'd hit her. But all I did was tell the truth. I let you go because you insisted you weren't mine. But I've learned something since then. I was never really yours either. She didn't argue. She just turned and walked back to her car like someone realizing the door had been locked behind her long before she ever knocked. It's been 6 months since that last knock at my door. I never heard from Lynette again. Not directly, anyway. A mutual friend mentioned she moved out of state, took a job in Portland, and started going by her maiden name again. I didn't ask for more details. I didn't want them. Not because I was bitter, but because, for the first time in years, my life wasn't orbiting around someone else's gravity. The apartment feels different now. Lighter. I replaced the couch, donated the table she never let me choose, and painted the bedroom a color she would have hated. It's strange, the things you cling to in a relationship you're afraid to lose. I used to believe compromise meant love. But I've learned that sometimes, Compromise just means shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's idea of happiness. I'm not dating anyone yet. I'm not living my best life on some beach with a cocktail in hand. But I wake up each morning without that heavy silence sitting on my chest. I go to sleep without wondering what else I could have done to make her stay. And that, in itself, feels like freedom. One night, I found her ring in the drawer where I'd buried it after she left. I held it in my hand for a while, not with sadness, but gratitude. Not for what we had, but for what her absence forced me to become. I didn't get the grand closure. No cinematic moment. No last kiss in the ring. Just space, time, and the quiet return of my own voice. So if you're watching this, stuck in the middle of your own unraveling, please know, being left isn't the end of your story. Sometimes, it's the first honest page. What's a moment in history where someone's loss became their greatest turning point? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. You've been watching Reddit Confessions.